In the last video, I arrived in Dubai on an Emirates A380 at the end of a long work week. I decided to take some time off here in the UAE before heading back to the frozen wasteland some call Canada. If you don't know me, I did most of my growing up in neighboring Saudi Arabia, and as a result, this part of the world is my home. To me, it's safe, friendly, and familiar. All of that is especially true for Dubai, arguably the crown jewel of the Gulf, and the current home of many of my childhood friends, as well as some new ones thanks to this channel. During my time here, I bounced around a couple of hotels with my travel pal Ricky, ending with a few days on the Palm at the W. Somehow I landed this absolutely over-the-top hotel room, a home base if you will, from which to enjoy this equally over-the-top city. While the city itself is truly a sight to behold, for me, the best part about this place will always be the people. In the end, 2 weeks passed by all too quickly, and it was sadly time to leave. Not having flown Etihad for some years now, I wanted to give them a try again, so I dipped into my mileage account and got a last-minute seat on their Dreamliner service to London. All that was left to do was find a ride over to Abu Dhabi, really not difficult in a land where motor vehicles outnumber humans. Also, I have a carpooler with me. This is Will. If you guys don't know who he is, go check out his channel. This is all right. I mean, for 2 hours, not so bad. How's the leg room?
It's not very good, mate. Goodness me.
Oh boy.
So
okay.
We're a British guy and you get a Bentley. I mean,
how long do you think it'll take to clear the border?
I cannot say.
Okay, no problem. ما في مشكلة.
You'll test everything with you.
Yes, I have it, don't worry. After dropping off Waggish Will in his vacation villa, it was time to leave Dubai. Going over to neighboring Abu Dhabi is relatively straightforward. You can either go by car as I did, which will take anywhere from an hour to 2 depending on the traffic, or you can take the train, which will take at least 3 years because they haven't finished building it yet. Now, I understand that might not have been the most helpful piece of advice, so let me try harder with this next part. Abu Dhabi is to Dubai what Nikki Hilton is to Paris Hilton, the more sensible, slightly less flamboyant older sister. Not on TMZ nearly as much as her younger sibling, but in reality, no less exciting. The city itself is situated on a collection of islands, with most of the built-up areas located on the largest one, Abu Dhabi Island. Despite being essentially one gigantic beach with no natural sources of fresh water, the capital is remarkably green, with palm tree-lined boulevards and lawns and flower beds adorning every corner. Like Paris, I'm talking about the city, not the Hilton sister, Abu Dhabi is home to a Louvre museum. It's my personal favorite attraction in the city, and I would definitely recommend every visitor put it on their list. Being a Formula 1 fan, I have to of course mention Yas Island. The postcard image of modern Abu Dhabi, this place hosts the venue to the final event in the F1 calendar, the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix at Yas Marina. But getting back on track, because this is an AV, oh my god, that was a terrible pun. Just east of Yas Island, you'll find Abu Dhabi International Airport. This airport will consist of a scattering of buildings on the south side of the property. Terminals 1 and 3 are interconnected and make up the bulk of commercial passenger operations. Terminal 2, on the other hand, whose existence isn't even widely known, is essentially a shed with a few bus gates that served budget carriers. I say served in the past tense because it has been closed since the start of COVID and is unlikely to reopen because there's a brand new terminal which will take over from the older buildings once it's complete. I don't believe I'm the only one who thinks that the new terminal kind of looks like a frog from above, but regardless of its bizarre amphibian morphology, it will be a huge improvement over the current buildings. As of the posting of this video, the structure has finished major construction and is due to be in service soon. For today though, we'll be going through T3, which isn't all that interesting, the only peculiarity being a US pre-clearance facility, one of a handful scattered around the world. However, we're not going to the United States today, instead we're headed to the United Kingdom, and with that our flight leaves in the afternoon. We'll depart over the Gulf, then go north along the Euphrates, passing over the Black Sea and most of mainland Europe to arrive in London just after sunset, covering a grand total of 3,430 miles in just shy of 8 hours. Inside the departures area, it was in itself quite a departure from the rest of the country in that it was wholly unremarkable. I somehow get the feeling that they really have just given up on this building and are waiting for the new one to open. With that said, if you're traveling in a premium cabin with Etihad, you do get to use their VIP check-in area, but for political reasons, I wasn't allowed to film in here. Don't worry, you're not really missing out on much. They had a couple of couches, that's about it. For the same political reasons, the border control and security staff weren't all too happy with my admittedly quite conspicuous camera, and I was told to keep it off. Obviously I didn't, but as a result, this footage of the cookie cutter duty-free area isn't very well shot, so do forgive me. Once out of sight of the security personnel, I was able to film a little bit more freely, not that there was a whole lot to see. Most of this terminal was made up of these closed-off boarding gates. Now this is quite common in this part of the world, as many destinations, including the UK, require secondary screening prior to boarding because they don't trust the airport security. Quite close to my gate was the entrance to the first class lounge, which was unfortunately closed. Not that I would be allowed in here anyways, being only in lowly business class. Thankfully, there was a lounge for the latter, and this one was open. First off, the floor space of this place was impressive, and within that they filled it with very sensible amenities. You won't see a mini golf or petting zoo here. The floor plan is also divided up into many smaller sections, effectively making the lounge feel quite cozy despite its size. There were many different seating options. Por ejemplo, this area next to the windows had energetically arrayed chairs and tables. Further in the back, larger, plushier sofas fill the space more like what you would traditionally consider a lounge. Some of the furniture did seem quite tired, but they were, more importantly, very comfortable to nap on. Closer to the entrance, the buffet area was, at the time of my visit, empty. I'll touch on that in a second, but next to it was an area with proper dining tables and seating. Moving on, the lounge had a proper business center, impressively outfitted with an array of iMacs and other modern instruments with which to conduct business and what have you. And when I say modern instruments, what I really mean was there was a printer. They also had this thing they called the Den, which was in reality just a bizarre concept in individualized television watching. Coming back to the food side of things, the buffets were no longer self-serve, I did mention that, but not all hope is lost, for they did have quite an impressive selection of cold and hot meals made to order. If you don't have a proverbial bone to pick with the single-use containers, you can order as much as you want. It's of course all free. In addition, they also had soft drinks, juices, and water with various levels of dissolved gas, and some marginally interesting pastries. More excitingly, the bar was open, along with some pretty impressive physical distancing between the stools. It was still as haram as always, with quite an impressive selection of liquors and champagne. If you're more pious in your indulgence, there are of course mocktails. All champagned out myself, after a fortnight in Dubai, I went for a simple gin and tonic this time around. I didn't go crazy with the food either, opting for just some mezza. Always a pretty good determinant of overall food quality. It was somewhere between a bakala and a supermarket, not really restaurant level here. After the quick snack, I did manage to take a nap. In my memory, this place can get a little bit noisy with children, but with the number of departures countable on one hand, that wasn't an issue at the time. I had wanted to take a shower after my nap, but sadly the spa and its shower facilities were closed due to the coronavirus. Lastly, the windows did provide some pretty good views of outside, but this wasn't the outside I was hoping for.
Okay, thank you guys, take care, thank you so much, bye-bye.
Overall, it was a pretty solid lounge, but I am interested to see what the new one will be like. Okay, oh, it's kind of cold in here. Gate 34, boards in now. I just took a little nap. It was very nice. If I sound a little lethargic and I'm a little slow to give you commentary, that's because I'm still really tired. Don't worry, I've figured out the remedy to presenter fatigue syndrome, and that is to simply do everything in voiceover. And with that, here is our American-made Boeing 787-10, which will deliver me along with a third of a plane full of people to London. So Etihad ordered a bunch of these. I'm not sure if they're going to go through with all of them, but with the return of the A380s uncertain for the Abu Dhabi carrier, these high-capacity Dreamliners may prove a good business choice going forwards. They also have a bunch of these Dash 9s, pretty Dreamliner heavy fleet altogether. I think it's safe to say that everyone enjoys these transparent jet bridges. I mean, I can't think of a reason why not. And on the subject of transparency, knowing that Etihad is notorious for enforcing their no filming on board policy, I did write ahead to ask for permission to film. They were weirdly fast in granting said permission, and as these things go, invited me to board a little ahead of everyone else so I can get some cabin shots. This doesn't change anything though, I'm still gonna roast them if they deserve it.
How are you? This is me. Good morning or afternoon. Oh. Hi there. Thank you so much. Okay. Oh, this is me. All right, thank you so much.
On the Dash 10 variant of the 787, Etihad has foregone first class altogether, instead filling the space between the first two sets of doors with 32 business studios and an offset 1-to-1 layout. Between the aisles, the even number seats are situated next to each other, while the odd ones are further apart from one another, backwards facing, and separated by this rather bizarre geometry of armrest, console, and side table. Couples would definitely want to choose the seats with numbers divisible by 2. Even when you inevitably get fed up with one another, you can always just raise the divider. For these business studio seats, Etihad has gone with a color palette featuring creams and what I call subdued diarrhea, which surprisingly actually go well together, at least for me. On the outboard side, the seats alternate in their proximity to the window and aisle, with the ones closer to the aisle facing backwards and the true window seats forwards. 10A is of the latter variety and will be my home for the next couple of hours. As it has become tradition at this point, let's do an exhaustive seat tour, starting off with the IFE display, below which you'll find a sizable footwell that proves useful in stowing all the stuff you get. We'll come back to those later. There's a storage space below this, handy for your shoes. Moving on the plastic wall, there's a coat hook up here, and the tray table slides out of the partition like this. It's one singular thick piece, it's not very adjustable, but does give you enough space to get out of your seat even when it's deployed. And it's pretty easy to put away, you just shove it back into its hole. Next to that, you'll find a large console table with pre-takeoff champagne for scale. On top of the surface is a touchscreen control panel for seat adjustments and lighting. There's a Panasonic Media remote, and USB Type-A charging ports, plural because there are 2. Below the table, you'll find some more physical buttons for quick seat adjustments. And next to the seat, there's a tastefully designed sconce that also contains a reading light. Under the armrest, you'll find a literature pocket. And in this partition, there's a bottle holder and headphone ports. Armrest slides out like this, and the entire top lifts open to reveal a storage cubby in which you'll find the provided noise cancelling headphones and another bottle holder back here. Lastly, there's a universal power outlet on the bottom. The seat itself features a seatbelt shoulder strap for takeoff and landing, but otherwise it has a corner chopped off the bottom to fit into the footwell, making it look kind of like a spatula. The window side has this rather lengthy leather padded rail. I think it's supposed to be a lip that doubles as an uncomfortable armrest. I was a little let down by the fact that there were no individual air vents, but being true Emiratis, the pilots did blast the AC after takeoff. Still, during boarding, it was still quite hot in the cabin, but that's where the safety card comes in.
At this point, I've completely run out of semi-funny toast to make, so here's to your health and hope everyone's doing well. Bet some of you weren't expecting that.
حضرات الضيوف الكرام، أهلا بكم على متن طائرة الاتحاد للطيران. إذا استدعت الضرورة تسفيركم بأكسجين الطوارئ.
I was really hoping that it would be a clear day for my flight, since the departure north out of the UAE features some of the most spectacular views of the Gulf. But disappointingly, it was quite hazy and dusty. However, not wanting to give up showing you the coastlines that defined my childhood, I turned to technology for help. Okay, now that seatbelt signs are off, let's check out the Wi-Fi, which Etihad has branded Wi-Fly. More like Wi-Fly with an airline with such cheesy branding, am I right? Okay, I'll shut up. Disregarding the minimum effort name, the Wi-Fi was actually quite reasonable, both in price and speed. I got this 300 meg package, which lasted me the entire flight. Moving on, let's have a look at the amenity kits. Yes, kits with an S, because these days you get a health kit in addition to the business class kit. How many times can I say kit in one video? At least half a dozen more times. This traveling well kit includes a mask, some vinyl gloves, and a rather bougie looking bottle of hand sanitizer, as well as a snood. Now you might be asking yourself, as I was, what in the fuck is a snood? I guess it makes more sense than a mask if you're wearing like a face veil or a burqa, or if you're skiing. Anyways, let's have a look at the proper amenity kit provided by Acqua di Parma in this bombastic margarine yellow leather pouch. The contents are pretty straightforward: body lotion, hand cream, and a small vial of perfume. On top of that, you get an Etihad branded dental kit and a non-branded black eye shade, and socks. There's bedding provided, and it comes in this plastic wrap bundle. It does look like they've done away with the mattress pads, at least on shorter flights. These days, you're given just a large pillow and a thick blanket. Continuing on to the exciting stuff, the meal service, which is preluded by this lengthy menu. And I don't mean the contents are lengthy, I mean the thing itself is quite long. There were 2 hot meals on this flight, and while you got a few choices for mains for both, there was only a set menu for starters and dessert. On the liquid side of things, the beverage selection was quite impressive. I asked for the Cipriani Bellini, but being quite popular, they didn't have any left by the time they got to me, so I instead asked for another gin and tonic. Probably less sugar anyways. This was accompanied by warm nuts. The gin was surprisingly good. I'll definitely recommend it to my friends from Alcoholics Anonymous. Okay, on to the main event. Everything came on one tray. Not sure if it's cost cutting in the name of the pandemic or what, but at least the portions were fine and the food quality still top notch. For my main, I went for the seared sea bass. This was accompanied by mezza, dessert, and slightly above room temperature bread. Firstly, the appetizer selection was much better than the stuff on the ground, and I really didn't care that the bread wasn't warm. It was not a big deal. This spicy doma thing was pretty good. Shame there was only one. The fish was flawless, not overcooked on the inside and just crispy enough on the outside to keep the moisture in. Very impressive. This being lunch, I went for the lighter option, and I'm really glad I did. It was filling but didn't leave you bloated, which isn't very fun this high up. Wine was kept flowing endlessly by the crew, and I was encouraged to sample quite a few. They were all very excited by the alcohol for some reason. This salted chocolate raspberry cake mousse cake thing was slightly spongy and not overly sweet. It was very good. Throughout the meal service, the flight attendants were very attentive, making sure everyone was happy and absolutely plastered. After lunch, it's time for the obligatory bathroom tour, with this being one of the 2 forward lavatories. Etihad didn't go for the standard Dreamliner fixtures, choosing instead to step things up a notch with swanky surfaces and lighting. I'm just happy they didn't go for the curved countertops and instead put in some usable counter space. As far as airplane bathrooms go, this one has quite a generous amount of space. If you didn't know, most Dreamliners have a contactless flush button, with this one being no exception. They also have this foot pedal to open the litter bin. Why doesn't every airplane bathroom have this? Coming back to my seat, let's have a quick look at the in-flight entertainment. True to its name, the e-box system is presented with a series of boxes. With the touchscreen out of comfortable reach, using the remote is probably your best bet. The user interface is very straightforward, responsive, and easy to navigate. Going back to the remote for a second, you can flip through the menus on the handset while the main screen is doing its thing. There's no option to play media on the remote itself, though to be fair, that's kind of a useless feature. But what isn't is the option to have the route map displayed on the handset. With the dock of the handset being in front of the seat, it's super convenient to see where you are at any given time. Going back to the content side of things, the media catalog had a decent selection of contemporary and newly released movies. It's not quite as extensive as Emirates' system, but the variety of different films and TV shows from around the world means that any passenger from any of the places Etihad flies to shouldn't have a problem finding something enjoyable to watch. There were also live TV channels to stream, and an option to randomly DM strangers in different seats, or even call them. I didn't try this function, but it did make me wonder if there's a microphone somewhere in the seat. The route map is provided by Panasonic's FlightMap 3D system, skinned in the airline's classic burgundy and dark orange palette. It has all the functions you would expect, including a pointer to the Kaaba, but sadly there were no outboard cameras to speak of. Finally, let's have a look at the provided noise-cancelling headphones. They weren't the nicest looking headsets, and were pretty average in terms of comfort, noise cancellation, and audio quality, so pretty much everything. But at the very least, they fit on my giant head, which is more than what I can say for some other products. Still feeling quite tired, and not helped by the fact that I had consumed copious amounts of wine, I decided to take another nap, and with that, converted my seat into a bed. The seat fabric was not the most comfortable thing to sleep on without a mattress pad, but apart from that, the rest of the bedding was very nice. Legroom was not an issue, and being situated further from the aisle, it did feel quite private. Personally, I like to sleep on my side, and this wasn't a problem at all. The seat cushioning was thick, and there was a surprisingly generous amount of room for your upper body. The blanket was also luxuriously heavy, and coupled with the strong air conditioning, despite the lack of individual air vents, I had no problems falling asleep. After a 3-hour nap, I was gently woken up with a mug of tea for the second meal service, and for this, I went for their unofficial signature steak sandwich. If you find yourself in business class on Etihad, do yourself a favor and order this. It has never disappointed. Along with the sub, I was also served a ready-to-explode bag of chips, or crisps as they say in the UK, as well as a chocolate marquis, or marquis as they say in the UK. Not sure where that pronunciation came from. This was by no means the light option, but that's not me lamenting. I wasn't planning on having dinner after landing, so I was pretty happy to have been properly fed. The food quality on this flight was quite phenomenal. I dare say it was probably some of the best airplane food I've had in 2020. After dinner, I was given a fast track card, which came in really handy for writing down someone's number. Fast track, on the other hand, was not open at Heathrow at the time. Alright, so Etihad. I've flown with this airline a handful of times in the past. I've had some great experiences with them, as well as some not so great ones. I guess it depends on the crew. The staff on this flight were very professional. It's apparent that the airline trains their crew well, but then again they knew I was coming, so I can't speak too much about the service. Overall though, I found the flight attendants to be not as engaging in terms of making conversation as perhaps Emirates or Qatar's, but whether that's a good or bad thing is entirely up to you. While we're on the subject of comparing Etihad to the other major Gulf carriers, I do feel that the Abu Dhabi airline has fallen a bit behind the other players. I can't speak for the other cabins, but having flown this business class product a few years ago, I did notice the cost cutting this time around. The removal of the mattress pads, pajamas, and simplification of the menu in a bid to reduce overheads were all measures introduced even before the pandemic hit. But with all of that said, the business studios were still fantastic seats, immensely comfortable, spacious, and private. However, the empty white walls did leave me slightly disappointed, especially considering that this part of the world is famous for its tessellata patterns and highly decorative art. I feel like they could have added a little bit more creativity. At the end of the day, which this is by the way, with the sun having just got... You know what, never mind. What I mean to say is, there was very little else to criticize Etihad for. They were serving proper meals on proper china with proper silverware during a time when few other airlines did any proper service at all. The bed was very comfortable to sleep on, and I arrived in London more energized, less tired, and fuller than when I had left. It was altogether an immensely relaxing end to a crazy time in the UAE, and a perfect transition back to the reality of life, work, and freezing temperatures. That's it for this time. Thank you for watching. I hope I was able to give you a proper look at the Etihad experience, and a big thank you to the crew for putting up with my filming. But until the next time, take care and safe travels.